So can you tell me a bit about what led you to create this degree program? Like, did you see a need? How did all that come about?
Sure. So I served in churches for like 3 decades, serving as worship pastor. And I have encountered lots of churches with a big need for worship leadership. Some of our churches are actually using something as terrible as called a digital hymnal, where they punch a button and it plays the accompaniment and they sing along. Even my mom's church was using DVDs to lead their worship. And my mom, even at 87 years old, when they got a contemporary worship leader, was thrilled because they had a person to lead worship. So our churches are in desperate need of worship leadership. And so we're trying to help meet that need in our churches and help them to have the kind of leadership that will be effective toward leading the churches in worship.
So is this going to be an associate's or bachelor's degree?
That's a great question, and the answer is yes. So we actually have 3 degree plans within the worship program. We have a minor, so you could major in education or major in criminal justice or major in Bible and get a worship minor. You can also get a 2-year associate's degree in worship arts. And just this fall, we've instituted a brand new degree, a full 4-year degree. It's actually a bachelor's of music degree with a worship concentration.
So what do the credits requirements look like as far as fulfilling the degree? And how do they overlap with other departments?
So we went through all of our music degrees this year and revamped them, and we brought them all down to 124 hours. So that all of our degree plans now are doable in 4 years if you average about 15 and a half hours a semester. So the Bachelor of Music with a worship concentration is a 124-hour degree. It is a full-on Bachelor's of Music degree. We tweaked the music requirements a little bit so that we could then fit in 15 hours of specific worship study. So they'll have 5 courses in worship. They'll have survey of worship arts, they'll have church media and technology, they'll have corporate worship ministry, they'll have church music administration, and they'll have the capstone class, Biblical Foundations of Worship. Other than that, as far as tying in with the Bible program, we have the similar basic ed requirements of every program on campus.
Why do you think it's important to have a worship major?
Well, I believe that we were designed to worship God fundamentally. The Westminster Catechism says that we were designed to glorify God and enjoy Him forever. I believe that's man's innate purpose, is to glorify God. Therefore, I think every person on the planet has a need to worship God. They don't all know that yet, but they have a need to worship God. And so our churches are programmed, designed to be those vehicles where people can worship God. That's the primary experience of every church, is worship, that Sunday morning experience. And so they need good leadership. It's so important that our churches worship and worship well. So we're excited. There's been lots of changes in worship over the last 20 or 30 years. So we're trying to help that student be ready to either sit on a stool and play guitar and lead worship, or lead an orchestra and choir and a big old music program.
So is there a distinct difference between a music major and a worship major?
Well, actually, our degree is a Bachelor's of Music in Worship, Bachelor's of Music with a worship concentration. So they are a worship major, but they also do the practical, biblical, theological study to help them understand what it means to lead the church in worship.
So what can you tell me about the response you've had to the major?
Yeah, it's been pretty exciting, actually. I talked to the pastor this past week, honestly, who his minister of music just left. So I described to this pastor what our program looks like and what we're trying to accomplish. And he said, Brad, if you can put out those kind of graduates, they will never want for a job. Now, I can't guarantee that, but churches are in desperate need. So this year, we have 7 students in the worship concentration. So we have 7 students in the full-on 4-year degree, and this is our first semester to start the program. So it's pretty exciting.
Do you have a goal of how many students you want to be in the program?
Do I have a goal of how many students want in the program? You know, we were just talking about that this morning, actually. The music department has doubled in the last 2 years, which has been pretty exciting. And we have some dreams and visions for the overall music department. We don't know at what point we're going to outgrow our space, but I would love to be graduating 5 to 10 students with a worship concentration every year, because there's so many churches that need worship leadership. Put me on the spot, man.
What specific skills will students pursuing this major develop by the time that they graduate?
Wow, that's a great question. So first of all, we want them to be musicians. They need to be able to handle music. You know, you never know who's going to show up in your worship ministry, and you want to be able to communicate with them on an intelligent level. So they'll go through 3 semesters of music theory, so they'll understand how chord structure works. And while that sounds like it's a lofty thing, honestly, guitarists use music theory every time they play. Pianists use music theory every time they play. So they will develop all kinds of musical skills. They will work toward, they have to take some private lessons in guitar, piano, and voice. They'll have to go through a series of courses that teach them the practical aspects of what it means to not just be a musician in the church, but to be a pastor, to be a minister in the church, to meet the needs of their congregation beyond the musical requirements. And then they'll also have to do an internship in a local church where they'll work with the ensembles and all in that church and how that music ministry works out.
And compared to other universities, is this major considered to be competitive or well respected?
Yes, it is actually. And I'm working really hard to build relationships with other institutions, the seminaries that we have in the Southern Baptist Convention, churches that we have. We're really trying to build that program. Fortunately, Hannibal LaGrange University has a high degree of respect among our churches. The churches in the area and really across the country have a high respect for Hannibal LaGrange. You can see that by who we have to come and speak in chapel. We have high-end Southern Baptist leadership in our chapel services. And so, yes, but we have a long way to go toward, the number one goal is to put out graduates. I believe once we start putting out graduates in the churches, and the churches see what kind of graduate we're going to be producing, I believe that respect level will even grow.
When it comes to internships, what type of requirements you're going to have for that, and what lessons do you want them to learn from that in-field experience?
Yeah, so the internships will be in the local church, right? So that they will spend a semester. We're actually working on trying to develop some other options, maybe some summer internships, so that they can work with a worship pastor and learn what does it take to put together a worship service Sunday after Sunday after Sunday. And then what does it take to lead a group of people? For example, we've had 2 internships right here at Calvary Baptist Church in Hannibal, and those students have had to put together the Christmas program for that church. So you can imagine how much effort that takes, pulling all those pieces together with drama and orchestra and choir and praise team. So we're hoping they're going to learn the practical aspects of how to really do the job.
What were some of the challenges that you faced while crafting this program?
Well, the idea of worship is somewhat vague. There's a lot of things that can go into worship. It can be a full-on creative arts style of worship program, or it can be just a lockdown music program. And so right off the bat, we had to figure out, okay, we have to define our program and what we want it to look like. So we decided that most churches today are looking for a musician to lead worship. So we felt like we needed to build it first and foremost in the music school, and then extrapolate that out into a worship studies program. And then, of course, there's the challenges of just fitting everything we wanted to do into 124 hours. It's pretty tight to get all of that in. But thankfully, we have a fantastic academic department here, and our VP helped us immensely. Our dean, our chair of the music department helped us immensely. So it was not easy, but gratefully we got it done.
How do you think this program will benefit the students who enroll in it?
Yeah, so what's exciting is we just started, we're kind of in the process of starting a worship leadership club. We've had one meeting. So we had 10 students in my living room a couple weeks ago, and we talked about what is it you want to do? What is your hopes? Some of our students were other majors, but they want to be involved in the worship program because they see themselves settling into a community doing one job, but also helping the church in the area, in the area of worship, like on a part-time basis. So we hope that our four-year graduates will go out, get a job, be a minister of music, be a worship pastor, be a worship leader in the local church. And so we're hoping that we provide them the tools they need to be effective in that. If they're going to do a music minor or a worship minor, that they can go be a school teacher or a policeman or whatever role they might serve, but also be able to serve part-time in the church, blessing the church, obviously, and also blessing themselves and their families as well.
So is this a degree that will greatly benefit those wanting to go into ministry? Like, for example, will it prepare them for seminary or other ministerial type roles?
Yeah, that's a great question. Our specific focus is training that worship leader who will either, like you said, go straight into the church and serve, and I think they'll be fully prepared, or it sets them up extremely well to head on to seminary if they want to move on toward a graduate level degree.
So how long have you been working behind the scenes to get this new degree program set up?
Well, when I came to Hannibal LaGrange, Dr. Allen challenged me. He said, Brad, I would like for Hannibal LaGrange to become the go-to place for worship leadership training. So I started here in June of 2014, and we've been working on it since then.